Hello, confused citizens of the right now Earth. Today, we embark on a journey into the mystical past, like a time traveling garden gnome with a thirst for knowledge. We're diving headfirst into the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, a place so elusive it makes Bigfoot look like a frequent guest on daytime television shows. Now, you might be wondering, why hang a garden? Was it trying to escape? Did the Babylonians have green thumbs or just really strong string? You might be wondering if this is a wonder. Well, fear not, for today we unravel this historical conundrum like a cat with a ball of yarn but without the fur allergy. And yes, it's one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, but not the today world, because it doesn't exist anymore. Unraveling the historical enigma that's wrapped in this mystery of the Hanging Gardens allows us to explore the cultural, architectural, and botanical wonders associated with this ancient marvel. It's like opening a time capsule buried in a plant pot, except instead of old newspapers, you find seeds of curiosity and a hint of fertilizer. Some say the Hanging Gardens were built by a king for his homesick wife, a romantic gesture on par with sending flowers, but instead, he decided to make an entire garden because rich, powerful people do things like that, I guess. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be horticulturally flabbergasted as we unearth the secrets of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. It's time to separate fact from fiction, like a gardener separating weeds from the prized petunias, with a bit more historical significance, with a little bit of wide-eyed wonder. Let's rewind the tape to a time when the Neo-Babylonian Empire was all the rage. Picture it. It's 605 BC, and that's BC as in before cheese, which is a time I'm sure you find hard to imagine, as cheese is pretty awesome, and you've never heard this before. I like cheddar cheese, particularly sharp cheddar cheese. In the starring role, we have Nebuchadnezzar II, the man who ruled Babylon with an iron scepter and an apparent fondness for flora. Many so-called experts say he built the Hanging Gardens for his homesick wife, as mentioned earlier, Amytis of Media. Imagine being so rich and powerful that you decide to solve homesickness with a vertical garden. It's like sending a postcard, but instead of wish you were here, it says wish you were surrounded by cascading greenery. To understand the Hanging Gardens, we must first navigate the intricate maze of Babylonian history. It was a cultural hotspot, a place where the wheel was invented, and Hammurabi laid down the law, literally the first written law code that anybody today is aware of. Babylon was the Big Apple of Mesopotamia, minus the skyscrapers, but with a healthy dose of ziggurats. These ziggurats were kind of like the skyscrapers of their time, except instead of offices, they housed gods. These hanging gardens, recorded throughout history, were they actually real? Were the Hanging Gardens a horticultural masterpiece or an ancient Babylonian myth? Let's dig in. Our first clue comes from the pages of history itself, written by people who presumably had more parchment than common sense. Ancient accounts describe the Hanging Gardens as a green oasis in the heart of Babylon, with terraces so lush they made the Euphrates River blush. Now, some folks, ancient and modern alike, swear by these accounts. The Greek historian Strabo, for instance, thought the gardens were so marvelous they deserved a spot on the list of seven wonders of the world. It's like the Michelin guide for ancient attractions, but with fewer stars and more wonders. On the other side of the debate, we have skeptics like the ancient wonderbuster Philo of Byzantium. He questioned the very existence of the Hanging Gardens, suggesting they were more fiction than flora. It's like the ancient version of those online debates about whether the earth is flat or a pancake. And let's not forget the modern day skeptics. Some experts argue that the gardens were just an ancient marketing ploy, a PR stunt by Nebuchadnezzar to boost Babylon's tourist industry. Now, the debate does not end there. Some scholars even question the very location of the Hanging Gardens, suggesting they were Nineveh, not Babylon. This game of ancient hide and seek, but with an entire garden, helps to make the mystery of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon more mysterious. So, in the grand tapestry of history, the Hanging Gardens remain a bit of a mystery. Are they the real deal or the ancient equivalent of fake news? The debate continues, but somewhere else. I think they could have been real, but maybe not. Debate settled. Let's talk architecture. The Hanging Gardens weren't just a bunch of pots hanging from a balcony. No, these gardens had layers, like a Mesopotamian wedding cake. Terraces upon terraces supported by grand pillars and intricate archways, supposedly. Allegedly, Nebuchadnezzar hired the ancient equivalent of Frank Lloyd Wright, but with more mud bricks and fewer complaints about the plumbing. Now, the real engineering was in the irrigation system. So picture this, it's Babylon in the middle of the desert, what we know now as Iraq. Now there's some rivers there, particularly it's right next to the Euphrates. Imagine creating a waterfall in the middle of a desert to irrigate and to water this garden that was hanging. Some say the Babylonians used a chain pump system to lift the water from the Euphrates River, defying gravity. Other experts say that they used magic to lift water from the Euphrates River, defying gravity. The jury's still out. The location of these gardens, however, do remain a mystery, as mentioned earlier. A historical Where's Waldo, if you will. Some say they were near the royal palace, while others argue they were in Nineveh, 340 miles away from Babylon, or 547 kilometers away if you're not American, or 295 nautical miles if you're a fish. Conspiracy theorists might even suggest that the Hanging Gardens were a secret meeting place for the Church of Scientology, the Freemasons, and the Knights Templar, where Nebuchadnezzar hosted clandestine garden parties discussing ancient scrolls and exchanging secret handshakes. So whether you believe in ancient architectural wonders or think it's all a plot by time-traveling secret societies, one thing's for sure, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon continue to mystify and entertain, like a historical soap opera, but with more plants and fewer dramatic pauses. Now we're going to belly flop into the murky waters of Nebuchadnezzar's mind to unravel this mystery behind the Hanging Gardens. Was it a grand romantic gesture, an ancient version of I love you more than all the flowers in Babylon, or something more politically ambitious? Some say it was a testament to his undying love for his wife Amadis, as mentioned earlier, the medieval equivalent of writing poetry or commissioning a portrait. But let's not forget, this was Nebuchadnezzar we're talking about, a king with a penchant for grandeur. Like saying LeBron James only plays basketball for the love of the game and not the multi-million-dollar contracts. Some historians suggest Nebuchadnezzar was flexing his kingly muscles, showcasing Babylon's architectural prowess to the world. It's the ancient equivalent of a celebrity buying a mansion just to host exclusive parties and make their neighbors jealous because, well, rich people with lots of big fancy things are just better than other people with science. Now there's also the symbolic significance. The Hanging Gardens weren't just a pretty face in the ancient world. They were a political statement, a green billboard proclaiming the might of the Babylonian Empire. Look at our garden and tremble. Now, speaking of rich people and their peculiarities, it's no secret that the wealthy have a penchant for luxurious things like gardens that defy gravity or perfumes that cost more than a small kingdom. The same reason they bathe in milk and surround themselves with an aroma of rare orchids, because nothing says, I'm rich, like smelling like a mythical rainforest. So Nebuchadnezzar might have thought, why not indulge in a garden that not only showcases my power, but also smells divine? We should examine the reliability of ancient accounts of the Hanging Gardens, because when it comes to historical truth, separating fact from fiction is sometimes like trying to find your keys, because they're never where you remembered they should be. So when we talk about reliability, we're not just questioning if the Hanging Gardens were more than a Babylonian mirage. We're delving into the accounts of ancient travelers and historians who, let's face it, were basically the TikTok influencers of their time. Some say that the ancient travelers and historians like Herodotus and Strabo were basically the first Yelp reviewers of the Hanging Gardens. Speaking of perspectives, the different perspectives on the appearance and significance of the gardens are as varied as the American political spectrum. One traveler might describe the Hanging Gardens as an opulent paradise, while another might compare it to a group of people all huddled up at a VFW talking and complaining about taxes. It's like a historical game of telephone where each account adds its own unique spin to the story. And one might say the gardens were a symbol of love, while another insists they were Nebuchadnezzar's attempt at outdoing his ziggurat-building neighbors, the ancient equivalent of keeping up with the Joneses. So evaluating these ancient accounts is trickier than convincing a woolly mammoth to switch to a low-carb diet. We have to consider biases, exaggerations, and the occasional embellishment for dramatic effect. After all, who wouldn't want to spice up a historical tale with a dash of mythical flair to sell some books? Hey, free speech. The decline of the Hanging Gardens is a historical whodunit, and our first suspect, time itself. As the centuries passed, it's possible that the once vibrant greenery slowly turned into a Babylonian version of a botanical retirement home. Theories on the disappearance are as varied as a Mesopotamian spice bazaar. Some say the garden suffered from neglect, like a forgotten pet rock from the 90s. Speaking of, where are the Backstreet Boys these days? Another theory suggests environmental issues, like a Babylonian version of climate change. Perhaps the region faced droughts or soil depletion. Some ancient texts hint at political instability, with power struggles and rebellions disrupting the royal horticultural agenda. We can say one thing that for sure is the Hanging Gardens have become the archaeological equivalent of a missing sock. Everyone's looking, but no one's quite sure where to find it. The modern archaeological and historical perspectives on the Hanging Gardens are like a jigsaw puzzle, missing half its pieces. Some experts are on a quest, armed with shovels and trowels, attempting to unearth the botanical remnants of Babylon. But here's where the plot thickens: debates and controversies. Some scholars claim the Hanging Gardens is or was or potentially could be one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world, while others look at them with more skepticism than a person claiming they've never seen an airplane. Now, it seems obvious to me why there are disputes. It's like trying to agree on the best Backstreet Boys song. It's impossible. Some folks believe the gardens were a reality, a green utopia among the sands of Babylon, while others argue they were just a figment of Nebuchadnezzar's overactive imagination, like a Babylonian bedtime story gone wild. And why anyone is disputing that there are disputes is a mystery on par with the disappearance of the gardens themselves. It's like saying, why debate when you can dig? But of course, it's not that simple. It's the academic version of asking, have airplanes always been in the sky? We know they exist now, but how do we really know what happened before we were born? How do we know? How can we tell? And are we all playing a part in the Truman Show? So while some scholars continue to dig through the sands of time, others remain in the theoretical realm, debating the existence of the Hanging Gardens with the fervor of someone arguing about pineapple on pizza, or pineapple pizza, or your favorite imaginary flying tube with wings zipping around the clouds. They remain a mystery wrapped in a riddle, with scholars digging, debating, and occasionally questioning the existence of airplanes and gardens in ancient Babylon. So before we wrap up this journey through the tangled vines of history, dear time travelers, I do have a humble request. If you've enjoyed our expedition, if you've chuckled at the mysteries of the ancient world, and you find ziggurats and gardens oddly fascinating, consider subscribing to this channel. We probably won't talk about ziggurats and gardens again, but there'll be some more interesting stories. And let's not forget the power of the like button. Every like is more than what I had before. It's like discovering a new piece of the Hanging Garden puzzle, which we right now know that we only have half the pieces. So hit that like button and let's turn this channel into a flourishing garden of historical musings and ridiculousness. I love you all.